Hey everyone, so in this video I'm going to be covering how to draw a basic head, both male and female, and I will be covering with you guys the proportions as well. So let's start off with the male. Usually I like to draw males first, so then later on when I draw the female it's a lot easier. Typically male, I guess guys are easier to draw because there's a lot more stuff that you can do with, whereas with girls they're more fun to draw, but they're actually a little bit harder to draw because when you draw muscles, for example, for the girl, the features are also often very, very softened. So with guys, it's easier to see with the muscles and everything, but they're not as fun to draw in my opinion. I prefer to draw girls more, just because they're more fun. But anyways, let's just get started with the head. So when it comes to the head, I'm just going to be drawing relatively big here. You first want to start off with the cranium. Let me see if that's big enough. Yeah, that should be big enough. If not, I'll just move it up. So here we first draw in the cranium, just a nice little circle here. And then we're going to divide this in half. So where to stop is more like on eyeballing. I generally would like to stop at around the part where this almost becomes a halfway point. So I would stop it right about here. If not, I can always adjust it. And when it comes to guys, their jawlines are typically a lot more squarish and angular. So I like to kind of put in the skull a little bit. So here we have the eyebrow ridge. If you feel that your eyebrow, you feel that little bone up there, kind of above here, that's where the brow ridge is. You're in your skull, you have this sort of like temple area, which kind of like goes from the side and goes out like so. That's where your eye socket is going to be placed in. But because we're doing anime, we're not really going to focus on that too much. In fact, I'm actually going to make his head just a little bit longer. So usually at this point, I kind of just adjust here and there. So I like to kind of put in the eyebrow ridge just like hinted there. And then down below, just up here, just a bit longer, I like to curve it down so I can show the jawline. So as you can see, it turned out to be a little bit longer. Now, of course, I will change this when I feel like it. But once we get to that point, then we can just try to replicate it on the other side. If you're having trouble with replicating on the other side, you can just draw a line to show where it's at, And of course, because you're drawing traditionally, it may not always be perfect. You're bound to have like symmetry problems. But that's normal. You just have to keep drawing, and then you'll get it. So that is more of an angular head here. This might be a little bit too long, so I'm going to shorten it just a bit. So I'm just drawing a kind of almost adult male head. When it comes to the neck, remember it's rather broad for the guy. So you have your sternocleidomastoid centered down. And here we have the trapezius. So that is the guy head. Now in terms of proportion, we just want to divide this in half. And your general rule of thumb, you can also add some shading down the collarbone, not the collarbone, down the neck here. Just for more, what's it called? Just for more depth. And here we can add in our sternocleidomastoid here. So if I were to put in our head measurements, actually I'm going to lower this really quick, because it looks a little bit long here. So sometimes adjust by eye. If you're just like, oh, well, how do I know if it's, not right? Well, if it's too short, you'll know, and if it's too long, you'll know. A lot of the time, the balance is always in the middle. But anyways, so here we have the center line from the head down to top of the head down to the chin. We have the center line. The eye is the easiest way to find your the eye line is easiest to find because that's literally just about halfway between the two. That's roughly, by the way, that's approximately. Usually that would be pretty accurate. Halfway between the eyes and the chin is your nose, approximately. So that's the bottom of your nose. Same thing with the mouth. Halfway between the chin and the nose is your mouth. Now that could be adjusted higher or lower depending on how cute you want your mouth to be. In fact, I want it to just be a little bit higher because I like that. When it comes to guys, the longer the chin, the more masculine he will look. So I don't know why. That's just kind of how it is. Now with the eyebrow, there's an eyebrow line as well, and that's just a little bit above the eyes. And let's do the girl here now. So we're doing it right next to her, right next to the guy. Once again, we're just drawing the cranium. And for the girl, I like to actually make the girl's head just a little bit wider at the top because it looks more cutesy. That's up to you though. If you don't want to do that, you don't have to. Divide it by half. Very, very lightly, by the way. And I would say end it about here because the rounder and the shorter the girl's face, the cuter. And instead of putting in all the angular jaw lines as the guy is, I'm just going ahead and rounding it out. And then towards halfway, I'm going to curl it in. And let's go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. Make sure the top is wider. And the cheeks are smaller and cuter. Now, of course, if it's not symmetrical, don't worry about it. You could always adjust it later. We can just go ahead and add in the neck, which will be a bit more slimmer and more smoother in texture, or just in bumpiness, I should say. You can add a little bit of the sternocleidomastoid in the pit of the neck and the clavicle here. So I kind of made the girl head a little bit big here, so I'm just going to shorten this so it looks kind of even. Okay. The reason why I shortened it that much is because usually that would be the ratio of this would be pretty much short, or else her head's going to be very, very long looking, especially when we add hair. So make sure that your head isn't too long, like up to here, or too short, like up to here. But through experience and through observation, you'll realize that the head shape is pretty consistent most of the time. So once again, if I'm going to put in our features, halfway is our eyes. And remember, everything like this can be adjusted, so don't worry about that. For the nose, I want to make it just a little bit higher for the girl. And same thing for the mouth. And for the eyebrow line, I would probably make it just a little bit higher. I will adjust this as I go on. The reason why I make it a little bit higher is because I'm going to make the girl's eyes pretty huge, because I like that. If we're going to be drawing the ears is about from the nose line, starts from the nose line up to about the eye line, or the beginning of the brow ridge. So if your character has smaller ears, then make them a bit smaller. And same with the guy. And there we have both the male and female head all nice and done. So you can see the difference between the two. This one is definitely a little bit more childish and round. You can definitely make the guy a little bit more childish and round as well. But typically, if you want to make a difference between the two, typically this would be the way to go. So anyways, that's pretty much it for this video. Let me know what you guys think and if this helped a bunch. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.